It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Writers Grindline. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined in by my defense partner, Devin Little. Devin, we're close. We're close to preseason games. We've had Traverse City wrap up. We also have training camp well underway, a couple days in. Hockey's back in my mind. We got everything. We're talking about actually stuff happening. We got players, lots of news coming out. Some of it not so good, but that's what we love. We love news. We've been talking about nothing the last few weeks, and now we actually have stuff to talk about. So how's it going?
It is great to officially be in hockey season, right? Even if the preseason hasn't officially started yet. There was obviously the prospect tournament last weekend. Training camp has started, like you said. This is when all 32 teams feel like they have a shot. This is like the best time of year. This is when enthusiasm is at its peak. I'm ready to go.
Yes, and that's probably part of our one good, one bad. So let's get going with that. A good and a bad from this past week. There's plenty to choose from.
Yeah, I'll take some low-hanging fruit here. One good is going to be that, hockey's back. But I'll also be a bit more specific with it because I'm sure we could both say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Looking specifically at the prospect tournament that concluded on Sunday, I really liked what I saw out of a couple players, namely, I'll hone in on the line of Cross Hannes, Nate Danielson, and Elmer Soderblom. Thought all three of them played very well together. Hannes specifically was a standout for me. Thought he and Danielson showed some really good WHL chemistry together.
Yeah.
And Soderblom looked like a player who played in the NHL last season against prospects, and that's exactly what you'd hope for, right? So it was good to see, not just Danielson, because obviously he was a top 10 pick, but Hannes, who is kind of a forgotten prospect, I feel like, in the just how many prospects Detroit has. I think he's kind of forgotten in that mix. He's definitely one to still keep an eye on. And then, of course, there's Soderblom, who made the roster last year and looks like he's going to do his damnedest to do it again this year. My one bad, I'm going to stay focused on the prospect tournament here. It's got to be Sebastian Costa's play. Obviously, you don't want to invest too much stock into what is ultimately a meaningless tournament. They're just exhibition games, right? They don't even hand out a trophy.
No.
So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But there's such high expectations for Costa. This is obviously a huge season for his development. It would have been nice to have seen him, play lights out and kind of give you some confidence that, all right, this is gonna be a real good year for him. But his performance in the prospect tournament did the exact opposite, and now we're kind of a little worried that he might be in Toledo to spend most of his time, and that is not where we want to see him.
Yeah, it was a little bit, especially we did our goaltender prospect list update, and I did it, and he was 5th on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
made me look a little. But it is an exhibition tournament. We shouldn't read too much into it, but like you said, it would have been nice for him to have a good performance and kind of settle those nerves that a lot of fans have had about him. He did it in the ECHL that kind of settled that during the last season, but now I think the concerns are starting again because like we've said, he should be playing in the AHL this season, not in the ECHL. And it's looking a little bit suspect, especially with some other goaltenders that they've got that could play in Grand Rapids above him if they don't think he's even ready to play in the AHL, which is not a good thing. But goaltenders, as we know, different levels of development. Some goaltenders peak, some goaltenders develops slower, and that's just the reality. But hopefully he can have a good season, because like I said, the exhibition, that thing is going to be deleted from people's minds if he has a good first month and he does play in the AHL. I think those concerns will be a little bit lessened, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Okay, my good is that training camp is going, and we've got some good news about Edvinsson. That's the one I like.
Yes.
That he's could be back soon, and that was what Steve Yzerman said in his press conference. And we were talking about Edvinsson, potentially maybe that he could be injured his full time, that they were saying, but looks like he's going to be seeing some full contact, and that's a good thing, because we want to see Edvinsson. Probably won't be in the lineup right away, but he will be in the AHL and hopefully soon into the NHL. But may have to wait for an injury in the NHL for that to happen. But it's good that he's getting healthy, because we want him to be playing somewhere. And that's a good for me, because that was some good news. On the other side, some bad news. Carter Mazur is hurt. And we said that in the last week, but it looks like it is not good. The timeline is not, he doesn't know, they don't know, which is not a good thing. When if it wasn't serious, I would think you would know pretty quick.
Yeah,
but the fact that we don't know is very good. And I'll add on to the good too, is Rasmussen was taken off injured reserve, and he will be probably playing this right away. So yeah, you wanted to say something, Devin?
No, I was just going to add on to the Mazur thing. They if it was not a serious thing, they definitely would be saying day to day with him. And like you said, they don't have a timeline, and that is not what you want to hear.
Yeah, we want to be playing in the AHL, and we even said that he may have had a good chance to maybe make the roster if he had a good preseason training camp. But we'll just have to wait, and hopefully it's not as serious as we're thinking it could be. Leg injuries aren't good, because you can't skate. And that's always a bad thing, because it always takes a while for you to get back up to speed when you get back. If it's like an arm injury or something, you can still skate, you can still stay conditioned that way. But anything that prevents you from doing that isn't good. So hopefully we'll hope for the best, and Mazur is healthy sooner rather than later. Okay, let's move on to some training camp thoughts that have happened in Traverse City. Lots of stuff. We've gotten a couple days into training camp. Like we said, the press conference that Yzerman gave us quite a bit of information. Lots of different things. We wanted to take a look at some takeaways. Jordan Orth, one of the writers of the Hockey Writers here, put up a great recap of that. So go check that out. But obviously we'll be talking about it too. But if you want to read it in written form, take a look. Devin, what do you think about training camp so far? Any takeaways that you got that has happened in these first few days?
Boy, there's a lot to talk about. So I guess we'll start up top. I think it's very clear just through the first 2 days that we're going to be seeing a lot of different looks throughout training camp, and probably even into the preseason. Day one, the top line, so to speak, was Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond. Kind of, one of those combinations that we've all kind of thought about at least once since the DeBrincat trade went through. And then today it was Larkin, DeBrincat, and David Perron. And then even after that, Coach Lalone said that he's not married to the idea of Larkin and DeBrincat being together. So even the one consistency between those two pairings is those two, and then even the coach is saying that's not, they're not married to it yet. So I would expect it seems like everything's on the table basically. And that's kind of exciting, because it's maybe a little boring when you kind of already know what the lineup's going to look like going into preseason, but boy, it seems, like I said, everything's on the table, so we have no idea what things are going to look like once final cuts are starting to get made. On defense, I think that the biggest takeaway I have there is that both Simon Edvinsson and Albert Johansson were skating with legitimate NHL talent, at least on the first day of camp. Edvinsson was skating alongside Jeff Petrie, and Albert Johansson was skating alongside Shane Gostisbehere. Now that day, Ben Sherratt wasn't available, so kind of an asterisk there. But regardless, I think that speaks volumes to where they think both of those guys are. We know Edvinsson's going to get a call up at some point this season, unless miraculously every defenseman stays healthy and whatever. But also, we've heard the talk that Johansson was really close to getting a call up last year, and seeing him skate with Gostisbehere, I think, is kind of proof of that. They do think highly of him. So if one of their young defensemen is going to force their way onto the lineup, it's going to be one of those two. At least it looks like it's going to be one of those two. So excited to see, if they give themselves the opportunity to do that, basically. And as someone who's a big AJ fan, choo choo. And then last but not least, this is kind of a minor thing because at the end of the day, PTO's tryout agreements don't always go anywhere. But I do think it's interesting that the Red Wings invited goaltender Michael Hutchinson on a PTO. And if you're not familiar with him, he's a 33-year-old veteran that's kind of been around both the NHL and the AHL for like the last decade. Spent a good couple of years as like the backup in Winnipeg. Last year, finished off the season with Columbus, was part of the Jonathan Quick deal that sent him to Vegas. He's been around the block a couple times. He's been there, done that. He played in the Calder Cup final in 2014. So he's got a resume, right? Like, if Alex Lyon wasn't in the picture, I think you'd look at Hutchinson and be like, oh, he'd be great to have in Grand Rapids to, have there for Kosa and Lethman and Bednash and, everyone that he's a great veteran mentor. But Lyon is there. And, Reimer's there too, for what it's worth. You kind of already expect that one spot in Grand Rapids is already taken, and you expect that Kosa or Lethman or whoever is going to take that other spot. But Hutchinson could easily play himself into a contract. And, for the sake of the Griffins winning games, which is important, I think Hutchinson would help the cause. But also, does that then force Kosa into another year in Toledo? Is that worth it? It's interesting stuff. Like I said, at the end of the day, PTOs more often than not don't go anywhere, and it's just kind of a temporary pairing. But boy, if Hutchinson looks good in camp and maybe he plays a couple games in preseason, it might be something to look at, because we all kind of figured we knew what the goaltending depth chart was going to look like in Grand Rapids this year. Hutchinson kind of threw a monkey wrench into that.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that PTO as well. I mean, it looks to me that they're like, we're not really sure about Kosa. We want to have maybe some insurance. Now, obviously, they didn't sign Hutchinson to a contract. They signed him to that PTO. If you want to know more about him, I did drop an article about those two PTOs this morning. About Artem Anisimov was another PTO that they added. For what it's worth, I don't know if it really is worth anything, but Anisimov was Alex DeBrincat's center in Chicago, but obviously he will not be playing as his center in Detroit.
Can you imagine?
May see in the preseason, maybe. But I would say that's not in the cards in the regular season, even if he is signed. But it's worth to note that he did have some success with DeBrincat in Chicago, obviously much younger at that time. But, he's a veteran of a lot of games. He's had 4 20-goal seasons in the NHL. It was interesting to have him in there. I mean, it could be just extra bodies some of these PTOs are just to fill a roster and, have them around. And to showcase themselves for other teams that may, they played well here. Okay, we'll sign him. Same thing with Hutchinson, could be the same deal where a team looks at, and he has a good training camp, good preseason. They say, oh, this guy could work in our organization, and then he signs there. So it's interesting that he is in camp. We'll see where it goes, but both those guys, I don't foresee being part of the roster on opening night, because it would be pretty interesting if Anisimov, especially Anisimov, makes the roster, because there's a lot of forwards that you'd hope could get over him. 36-year-old guy that, I mean, he played in the AHL last season, had 19 goals, but he's on the, I mean, that's all he's really going to be doing now. And we'll see. But it's interesting those guys were added because there's a logjam on both those positions, forwards and goaltending. So it's a little interesting that they were added to the mix, but it's always a good thing to talk about. It's good storylines for training camp. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the preseason. We'll have 2 preseason games to talk about in our next episode. So we'll see these lines in action in game situations. So that's going to be fun to talk about after that. And if Hutchinson gets into any of those games, we'll have to see. But I mean, early on, they usually split the periods with the goaltenders. So may see a few of those guys early on. So that'll be interesting to talk about. Okay, off the rush. Now we just talked about those PTOs. What's the percentage that you think Anisimov and Hutchinson have? I mean, is one more of a chance than the other, or are you thinking that they're just going to end up being released from those PTOs?
You never want to write anybody off because, you never know, and depth's good to have. Yzerman clearly is a big fan of depth.
Yeah.
I don't foresee Anisimov earning a contract. He hasn't played in the NHL since 2021.
Yeah.
I just would be shocked. And maybe he gets an AHL deal. Maybe that's on the table for him or in the cards. I'm going to put it at like 1% because you never say never, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Hutchinson, I still say no more than yes, but like I said, I think it's interesting and something maybe to keep an eye on, especially if Kosa doesn't, his play from the prospect tournament carries over to the preseason, and you are still kind of going into the season worried about him. I'll put him at like 25, maybe 30, 25 to 33%, as being able to get a contract. I don't know if it's going to be an NHL contract. Maybe it's an AHL contract, maybe, whatever, but I would say, more likely than not, he won't get one, but I think there's definitely a chance he'll earn himself a deal. Like I said, he's a quality veteran and has been a quality veteran for a long time.
Yeah, he's been the ideal like third goaltender in a lot of cases that he just comes up and just fills in. Didn't have a very good season last with Columbus. I mean, how does a goaltender be good in that situation? Yeah, he played a bit there, had a really bad goals against average, but I think any goaltender there didn't have very good season last in Columbus. So I don't think you should take that with anything. All right. Before we get to our next couple player previews, we're getting to the end here before the regular season starts. But until we get there, here's a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
All right. Well, let's get into our next player preview, and we're going to talk about the number one defenseman on the Red Wings, top pairing, Moritz Seider. We've talked a lot about him on the show this past season, how he had a bit of a, sophomore slump. I don't know. I mean, he won the Calder Trophy, as we all know, in his rookie season. Had a bit of a down season up until a point where he was switched partners. And then he started kind of looking like the old Moritz Seider when he had a defense partner that he could actually trust, and Jake Wallman. So he's going to have him back this season as his partner right from the beginning. So what do you foresee Moritz Seider having for expectations? What do you have for expectations for him this season?
In short, more of the second half of last
Yeah.
season. And to your point there, found instant chemistry with Jake Wallman and kind of reversed course on his season. I don't see any reason why he and Wallman won't be together to start this season and into the end of the season unless like crazy things happen. And as long as that chemistry stays there, I think Seider could have a real big year. Um, Personally, I kind of want to set the expectation that he gets some Norris Trophy votes.
Yeah.
Not saying he wins it, but some votes, right?
Yeah.
Because he certainly has that potential, and he's a number one defenseman. If the Red Wings have the kind of season they want to have, he's gonna catch some eyes. People are gonna kind of take note of him. That it wasn't just a one. He's not one of those Calder Trophy winners that has one good year and then kind of just becomes a guy. Oh
Yeah.
no, I think he has the potential to be something much more. I'd like to see him get back to the 50-point plateau, like he was in his rookie season. Maybe even higher, especially with the added firepower that the Red Wings added. Maybe scratch 60. That would be really, really nice. I think at that point, you're almost guaranteeing he's going to get some Norris Trophy votes. But yeah, ultimately, I just want to see him continue to build on what he was doing at the end of last season. Um, and kind of start to assert himself as one of the best defensemen in the NHL because, as we've said multiple times on the show, he has that potential and he's still young enough to where his best days are still ahead of him. And that's exciting. I think that if we're at the end of the season and he's anywhere from 50 to 60 points, a positive plus minus, fingers crossed on that one. I don't even care if the Red Wings are in the playoffs or not. I think they probably had a good season because the number one defenseman had a really good season.
Yeah, I think he has a potential of having a really big season too, because like I say, if he's with a partner that he trusts and he can just be free to what he does best, then I definitely see that. And he's already has confidence in his ability to be that type of defenseman. We saw it in his rookie season. And then again, after he got with Jake Wallman. So I see that pairing as being consistent throughout the season, unless, like you say, something crazy happens, and we hope nothing like that happens because you have injuries to one of them, which could happen. And I don't foresee that the chemistry just goes away all of a sudden. Oh, they can't play together. No, I don't see that happening. So they're definitely going to be trusted as a top pairing this season, and we'll see how Seider gets points wise, and he'll definitely have lots of opportunities to get it. That's for sure. All right, on the other side, let's talk about their top forward, arguably, Dylan Larkin, and the captain, and a guy that just signed that big extension as well. So he's here for the long haul. What do you see Larkin this season? I'm sure we want to see at least what he did last season.
At least, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You let it off with, their best forward, maybe arguably, because I think that just kind of goes to show the growth of this year's team because every other season that this show has existed, there was no question he was their top forward.
Yeah.
And now here we are today, and there's maybe a little bit of a debate, and that's honestly good for the Red Wings. And good for Dylan Larkin too, because that's going to be a big reason why he could have a really big season. He has a certain, new teammate that he might be able to feed for a lot of goals. We talked about him earlier, Mr. Alex DeBrincat. If those two play together, I know, I mentioned that Lalone said he's not married to the idea of them together, but I think they'll be together.
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll spend some time together. Maybe they don't start together, but I think, I've said this before back when the deal was made. I think you acquire a player like DeBrincat to put him alongside Dylan Larkin. So, no matter how we get there, I think we're going to end up there. And with that comes the possibility that Larkin hits, some career marks at the age of 27. Last year he had a career best season, 79 points in 80 games, so just shy of a point per game. But still, a really good season. I think you want to see him crack 80. I think you want to see him crack maybe 50 assists. Get a nice 30 goal, 50 assist point or 50 assist season. I think you're pretty excited about it. And he might even push 90 if things go really well. If DeBrink gets pushing 40 goals, I think that Larkin's probably going to be pushing 90 points just because they're probably playing together a lot, right? So I think I don't know. I remember last year when we did these player previews, I was like adamant that like this year I want Larkin to have a career best season, point blank, and like I had all these benchmarks I thought he needed to hit. And for the most part, I mean he hit my requirements, right? He had a career best season,
Yeah.
and good for Dylan. This year I'll say he needs to have a career best season because he has the most talent he's played with ever. And just because of that, he should be able to hit 80 points. But I don't know if like I need to say he needs to hit 90. I don't know if at the end of the day, I just want him to establish chemistry with, all the new players, especially DeBrincat, and look like the top center he's being paid to be. There's with his new contract, there comes a whole new level of scrutiny to it. People are already on him about what he is and what he isn't. Now he's got an even higher price tag, so I imagine that stuff's only going to ramp up. It's going to be on him to kind of just prove the doubters wrong. I think he's perfectly capable of it. I think that Steve Yzerman has equipped the team around him to allow him to have higher success this season. But at the end of the day, it's going to be on him to do it. And for what it's worth, I think he's perfectly capable of it. I'm excited for Larkin because except for his first season where they did play making the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's probably the first time in his career where they have an honest to God shot at making the playoffs. And I'm sure he's really excited about it. I'm sure he's not the only one, but as kind of like the lone player left from this rebuild, yeah, he's got to kind of lead them into the new era, and that means having a real big season.
Yeah, I think he's definitely capable because, like you said, he had that career best season last year, and was we say arguably the best player. That's great to say, like you said, because before he was the best player. Who else was there? I mean, but they do have a few other guys that could contend with that. Alex DeBrincat now. You've got Lucas Raymond. Those two guys definitely could be in the conversation as best forward. But I still say Larkin is probably there until Lucas Raymond kind of proves it a few seasons in a row. And the same thing with DeBrincat. We know he's really good, but is he going to be really good in Detroit?
Yeah,
that's the question, and we're hoping that he is. I'm thinking he will be, but it's like it's just until we see it, we don't know. And we'll get to see it pretty soon. All right. Off the rush. I've got 3 questions, and I just thought of them all in this last bit. The first one, you mentioned Moritz Seider as Norris Trophy votes this season. Now, I'm not saying he'll win it this season, but do you see a Norris Trophy in his future?
It's tough because he's not the Cale Makar type. He's not the Quinn Hughes type. He's not the Adam Fox type who puts up, a ton of points. And just, if you're going to put him up against a Cale Makar, he's going to have to be like dominant defensively to even have a shot at it. Now I'm not going to handicap him and say, no, he won't because of all these other guys. I think he could win one, and maybe it's one of those kind of like, later in his career where it's like he's been a really top tier defenseman for a long time. Let's kind of give him his flowers and let him have one. They do that crap all the time, so like I could see him being the beneficiary of one of those. But I also think that he could very well just earn one on his own merit. He's like I said when we were talking about him, his best days are still ahead of him, and he's already pretty darn good right now.
Yeah, I think he could. But but so many good defensemen in the NHL.
Right?
And that's why I say I really think they should create another trophy for
100%.
these guys that are like Seider, may not put up the 70, 80, whatever craziness points that these defensemen do, but, consistently puts up the 40 and, is just good all around. And not these guys that win the Norris Trophy aren't always the best defensemen, because Erik Karlsson is not.
Erik Karlsson.
Erik Karlsson is not. And he's won how many? 3?
3.
So yeah. And Cale Makar, I'd say is better defensively than Karlsson.
For sure.
Definitely is. Guys like Quinn Hughes getting better on that end. He hasn't won at Norris, obviously, but I think he has that potential. But I just find that they should create this new trophy that just kind of gets these other guys a chance to win a trophy too, because I just feel like you have to be ridiculously good offensively to have a chance. And yeah, but that's a whole other can of worms you want to open with that one. All right, next question is on Dylan Larkin. Now, you said that he could maybe hit 90. Do you see 100-point season in his future? That's big, because not a lot of guys hit the triple digits there. But does Larkin have that capability to do it?
I really want to say yes, because we love hyping up Larkin on this show.
Yes.
But I'm going to say this. Pavel Datsyuk had a career high of 97 points. And we all know how great Pavel Datsyuk was. He didn't crack 100. He came darn close, but he didn't crack 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I, with all due respect to Dylan Larkin, I definitely think Datsyuk's his ability to just do things and put up points. So I'm gonna say no. I definitely think 90 is doable. I think a lot of things would have to go right for Larkin to hit 100, and even then, that's asking a lot, because if Pavel couldn't do it, I don't know if Larkin can do it.
Yeah, and he had some talent around him.
Absolutely,
lots of talent Datsuk had. They were the high-powered Red Wings when he was around, but not arguably, but he was the best two-way forward I'd say the Red Wings have ever had, in like offense and defense. That, what was he like, tops and takeaways almost every season amongst forwards, and like you be careful around him when you had the puck.
and he would make you look silly when he did it too. Like, it wasn't just like a good poke. Like he'd
take the puck from you, not just poke it away. Thank you. I know he was amazing. They call him the Magic Man for a reason, right? So
absolutely.
All right. Well, that got off a little bit on a little tangent. But, we always love to talk.
Always have time to gush about Pavel Datsyuk.
All right. Last question, and this is we'll talk about the preseason coming up. The 2 games they got before we get back together is against the Penguins on Tuesday, and then the Capitals on Thursday. Do they win any of those games? Now we know who cares about preseason, but victory is always good. Where do you see it? I know there's going to be weird lineups and stuff, but it's always fun. So
yeah, I'm definitely kind of taking a shot in the dark here, because we don't even know who's going to play in those.
I know, that's what I say. We'll see if we have a crystal ball we could get to.
I'll say they split it 1-1. I'll say they beat the Capitals, lose against the Penguins.
Good split, whatever. I don't know, like I say, the lineups are going to be weird. We're not even have any top players in any of them. I don't know. We'll see. But fun to watch preseason, which is it's coming up. So we'll get to talk about some takeaways, not about the games if they won or lost, and we'll say some. We'll talk about it, but about how the players played in those games, because that's what we care about in preseason. See how everyone performed, what the lines are, defense pairings, all that fun stuff, and we'll talk about that next week. But Devin, thanks for joining again, talking Red Wings. We've got great season ahead, lots of excitement, hopefully lots of wins to talk about, but there's going to be lots of storylines throughout the season, especially early on with the new players, and see how DeBrincat plays with the players that he plays with, and we may see that in the first preseason game. I'm hoping. So make sure you're following us on hockeywriters.com. We've got, like I say, still those preview stuff coming out until the season starts, and we'll have lots more of that. We got prospect stuff. I know, Devin, you're going to be focusing on the Griffins a lot this season. So look out for that. I know you dropped that first notebook type post. I'm assuming that's going to be a regular thing. So there you go. So keep an eye out for that. The Grand Rapids Griffins got a bit extra coverage this season, thanks to Devin. So keep following us over there. And Hockey Writers Grindline Twitter is still around. Make sure you're following us there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and give us a like on YouTube as well. Keep with those comments as well. We said we're gonna have Comment Corner coming back, but we'll get it back.
Definitely next week. We're done with the previews.
We're done with the previews. We have Comment Corner coming back next week, and we have a few questions we can grab already from previous days. So Don, be patient. We'll get to your question. We'll get to it. I know you've dropped a couple since I believe in the last couple episodes. So we'll answer at least one of those next week. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Hockey Writers Grindline.